pamoja, ushindi kwa ukombozi wetu. Tujitoe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja, kulinda uhuru na umoja wetu. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote, tuimbe pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
The ingenuity that went into building this rocket is incredible. Incredible engineering. This is the Saturn vehicle, the size of a 36-story building. Apollo 8, the first to successfully orbit the moon.
I'd like to talk to you about the United States of America and Africa. We do share a lot in common. We do have differences, and I just want us to discuss what are the opportunities on both sides of the Atlantic. Obviously, we do have a lot in common historically. We have all nations and all races represented in the United States, and in Africa too, we have a lot of diversity. And out of that, we actually have a lot of opportunities that are available for Americans in Africa and Africans in America. And this is what I'll be talking about very regularly on this channel. Today, I just want to start with an overview, and I'll start with the most difficult challenge, which is employment. Because for young people particularly, they finish school, they want opportunities to work and realize their dreams, and to see this as a basis for us to discuss opportunities in future, whether it is in education, business, adventure, charity, or indeed employment. So I'll share with you a screen and we'll start from there. And it will be brief. Just start with this slideshow. Employment in America and Africa. And I want to go through this quickly, an overview. We'll just discuss the employment situation in select countries as examples. We will see where we get it right and where we get it wrong. Let's start with the United States of America. Historically, the USA has always had very low unemployment. Most people are working most of the time, except when they have recessions. But even with that, they have never actually had unemployment going above 10% of the workforce since 1948. In fact, the last time they had very high unemployment was in the 1930s, when it rose to a high of 25%. So you can see the trend. Generally, unemployment is very low and it keeps going down. January 2023 in the USA, of the 165 million people in the civilian labor force, 160 million were working. That is 96.6%. The unemployment rate was very low at just 3.4%. For every of the 5.7 million people approximately who were unemployed at that time, there were about 2 jobs vacant available for them if they had the right skills and be in the right place. So basically, there are more jobs than people who can work. They have a shortage of people, only that sometimes there's a mismatch between the skills and location of the people. Wages continue to increase in the USA, even though the cost of living is also rising due to inflation. But wages for low-level positions, for example, production non-supervisory roles, were at 28.26 US dollars per hour in private non-farm jobs in January 2023. Now, let's compare with some select African countries without trying to disparage any nation, just to show where we need to improve in Africa, for example, to create more opportunities, particularly for young people. We'll start with South Africa. Of the 23 million people we call the economically active labor force, 15 million were working in South Africa. Those are people aged 15 to 64 years old and available and looking for work. So 67% compared to the 97% in the USA that we just mentioned. Youth are the most unemployed, with a percentage of young persons aged 15 to 34 years who are not in employment, education, or training. So basically, they are not in school, they are not working, and they are not being trained, stood at 44% in South Africa in that period, June to September 2022. Women were the second most unemployed, with 35.1% of the economically active unemployed. Men did a bit better, but still 32.9% of economically active men were out of work at that time. And you can see generally the trend in South Africa, the blue line being women, and the green line being the average for the country, both men and women, and men being represented by the red line. You can see generally the trend of unemployment is actually going up compared with the USA, which we just looked at. Although this is a shorter period, 2014 to 2022, but you can see again, it has always been very high. We're talking about numbers that are well above 20%, going to above 30% in terms of the unemployment rate compared with the USA, which generally for a very long time is below 10%, and in fact, most of the time below 5% of unemployment. Nigeria, as an example again, unemployment in Nigeria in the period October to December 2020, that is the latest data we could get from the Statistics Agency, stood at 33.3%. Unemployment was at 22.8%. Youth unemployment, just like in South Africa, is extremely high in Nigeria. It stood at 42.5% in that period. In Kenya, there's not adequate, reliable data currently on unemployment. However, we can tell from a very large number of people in informal employment, those are basically small-scale farming and micro enterprises, people self-employed or just trying their luck on the streets, hawking wares or other such businesses, is very high. Of the 18 million people in the total active labor force in Kenya, 15 million, 83% of them were in informal employment at the end of 2021. Contrast that with the 97% in the USA who are largely formally employed or self-employed, but in well-established businesses, make profit, can compete for tenders. In Kenya, we're talking about 83% in informal employment who basically cannot compete for tenders, for example, in government. They don't have licenses sometimes to operate. They're being chased away by local government officials from the streets, for example. So they are not very well-established businesses. And of that labor force, only 2.9 million were formally employed. That is only 15%. In formal employment, we know what it means. The owners and their employees have inadequate savings and profits. There's no social security for sickness, disability, or old age. They have low access to credit and lack of opportunities, such as bidding for government procurement. Where do we start in terms of trying to solve this problem? What do we get wrong? And what can we build on where we get right? In other words, It's a problem that needs a solution from people and the government. And we really have to start from asking ourselves that question. What are we getting right and what are we getting wrong? In Africa, I think self-reliance and hard work by people is very evident. You can see people really working hard on farms, in their small businesses, hawking wares on the street. Somebody who is that hardworking, if you give them the opportunity, there's no way they are going to fail. In fact, I can assure you, you take that person from Africa and put them in the United States or another country which has opportunities and low levels of corruption, and where there's equal opportunity that if you work hard, you succeed, almost all of them are going to succeed. That's why you see a lot of people who come to the US to study, say, from Africa. They excel in the schools. In Africa, it's very competitive. Jobs are few, so everybody works hard to pass the exams, for example. When they come to the US, because of that pressure they're used to, they do very well. The same way, those who try businesses here and those who come for employment, they do very well in employment. So I think it's just a question of us getting some things right back home as well. So you can see also that absence of government policies to support business and employment, as well as corruption, dooms most people in Africa to unemployment. Low incomes, inadequate healthcare, food insecurity, and lack of social security for disability or when you are sick, maternity, loss of income, and in old age, most people lose income, they don't have a pension. So we have a great challenge because of government policies that do not support the creation of such systems, social security, adequate jobs, and also the right environment for businesses to do well. In contrast, most people in the USA have jobs. They have social security through contributions that they make with their employers when they're working. For example, if they get unemployed, they get unemployment income. So they don't lose income at all. They actually have money to sustain themselves. When they become disabled, there's disability insurance. When they're sick, there's health insurance, which is becoming cheaper, still expensive in the USA, but it's becoming cheaper with things such as the Affordable Care Act called Obamacare. When they are old, when they retire, they have also in the USA, they largely ensure that they are very supportive of low taxes so businesses can thrive, make profit, and employ more people. They also ensure there's a right environment for businesses to succeed and for people to get jobs. When you try to open a business here, there's so much support from government. They will even help you do your business plan. They'll give you a lot of opportunities, whether it is some exemptions from particular charges or taxes to ensure you can start. A lot of supportive environment in terms of, for example, good infrastructure, advice, access to credit, and all these things help people succeed in business. Then low levels of corruption, because corruption here is not tolerated. Yes, there's some corruption. There's no country without some corruption, but here it's low. And when people are caught engaging in corruption, they are severely punished. So truly, corruption is very low and people can succeed. You will not be asked to pay a bribe to get a license or to operate your business. You won't have Shylocks or government officials hanging around you trying to take money away from you, lending to you money at very exorbitant, extortionist rates. You will actually see that business is very supported by both the financial institutions, the government itself, both federal government and local government. Next week, just to give you a hint, talk about what you need to live, work, and do business in the USA. In future, of course, we'll also talk about opportunities for Americans to explore adventure, work, charity, and business in Africa. But next week, we'll start with a discussion on opportunities for those in Africa and in fact, anywhere else in the world who want to come and explore and make their dreams come true in the United States of America. So if that is you, I'll be giving you some tips because I'm here in the USA myself and I come from Africa. I'll be giving you some tips on what you need to do in terms of preparation, what kind of education and skills, what are the eligibility requirements for the various types of visas for you to come to the USA, what kind of competence from low skill to high skill jobs do you need to be building on so that you can succeed when you end up in the United States of America? And how diligent are businesses here in terms of the expectations of what you should do to deliver if you come to work here? They will look at your productivity in terms of diligence for results, whether it's timeliness, not being tardy, that is not being late always for work and other things, but also making sure that you are delivering your results on what you have agreed in your contract. We'll also discuss things like mobility. America is a big country. It has very modern infrastructure, but it's also big. So things like, how do you get to work? People don't live very close to work sometimes. Things like cost of living. What are the high costs you should expect on things like maybe healthcare and housing, but also what are the opportunities? For example, actually housing generally in the US compared to other rich countries is not so expensive. So how do you plan and invest when you reach here so that you can make sure you have a home? And maybe you can even do business yourself. And things like food are actually not so expensive because America produces a lot of food and also imports quite a lot. So there's a lot of variety in terms of food, and choices are there. Even with inflation right now, food is not so expensive. Things like taxation and social security, how do you navigate this? It's very complicated, especially taxation, opportunities for investing, and things like social security, the various retirement accounts that you have at your employment, but also those where the government gives you some tax incentives and opportunities for you to save on your own for your retirement, or when you become elderly or maybe disabled, or maybe you lose a job. How do you save for those situations? So that's what we'll discuss next week. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you're going to be enjoying these episodes. Thank you. Bye-bye.